this week's episode of One Piece, thanks to the dumb cowardice luck of Usopp, all of the toys of Dressrosa finally revert back to their original forms and go on the attack against Doflamingo and his family. Kyros also returns, and he plans on sticking his sword right up Dofi's ass. This week's episode was pretty awesome, but it was also kind of slow. Really, only two things happened. All the toys changed back, and Kyros was on the attack. That's pretty much it. However, this week's episode was certainly a visual treat. It was really fun getting to see all of the different characters transform back into their respective forms. And it's actually kind of interesting that it's not just humans. There's actually animals and big circus creatures like this massive lion and elephant. It's ridiculous. And the episode certainly goes through the ups and downs of just all the different emotions of people actually getting their memories back. Families are reunited, memories are reattained. We even get to see that some people went on to form new relationships, and that pisses off their significant others to the point where they'll pull a knife on them. It's a pretty nutty little episode right here, and it's also just cool getting to see all of the different pirates finally come back and get revenge against Doflamingo and his men. There's also a short scene where they make it seem like Usopp was gonna die. There's no way he was gonna die with such a goofy-looking expression on his face, and besides, it's Usopp! He's one of the main members of the Straw Hat crew. If they were going to kill off a member of the crew like that, I think they would do it in a much more dramatic fashion. And frankly, I just don't see that happening anytime soon. But it is certainly made for laughs. And like I said, it's just really fun getting to see all of the people and animals transform back into their respective forms, especially Robin. There's, of course, a little bit of fan service where she certainly fills out, if you know what I mean. But that final scene is really my favorite thing about this week's episode, which features the return of Kyros, which certainly has a real big flashy entrance, and I love the symbolism of the statue, and then his body slowly starts to emerge, and as soon as he returns, he's just standing there with one leg, no problem whatsoever, and just decides to start attacking Doflamingo outright. So what's the rundown on this week's episode of One Piece? It was very simple, but one you should definitely check out if you're planning on following the series, and especially the Dressrosa arc, because this is basically the turning point for Dressrosa. This is when things are going to start going crazy, and I just love how they showed all the different types of things that are going on in Dressrosa, like how the families are reunited, and how people deal with the fact that others might marry other people, and just their overall reactions to that. All of the big circus monsters, like the big polar bear in the massive Colosseum. It's ridiculous, but it kind of works in the world of One Piece. The thing that I think was really strong about this episode was actually more the art direction than the animation. Just all the character designs of all the people in Dressrosa. They all look really crazy, and in typical One Piece fashion, they're all out of proportion and just have their own wacky designs going for them. Another thing that I really liked about this episode was seeing how pissed Doflamingo was getting, and just realizing that it's Usopp that caused this. That's really funny when you really think about it, and we've never really seen Doflamingo get this angry before. And then that final part at the end where Kyros just busts in and decapitates Doflamingo. Is this going to be the end of Doflamingo? I don't think so. He's not going to be taken out that easy. But the scene itself is awesome, and it just shows off the raw intensity of Kyros, who honestly is just one of the most badass warriors of the entire series. And he doesn't even need any freaking hockey or devil fruit to make that shit happen. And he only has one leg! And I do think that's interesting how they're making him basically just hop around. That was something I was always wondering about when I was reading it in the manga. What he's actually going to look like when he's just sort of running around with one leg. And I'm not sure, maybe because like he was turned into a toy, it like somehow like cut the wound or cauterized it somehow, so that way he's not constantly bleeding out. And there's also that one scene where that one ragdoll was chasing after that dog that had his arm. Lucky for him, he freaking grabbed his arm in time. Otherwise, he probably would have been missing it if he didn't attach it, because as soon as he got his arm, he transformed back into a human, which, surprisingly enough, his human form resembled his toy form almost to the T, whereas some of the other ones were a little more extreme. But otherwise, this was a visually appealing episode, but it was really slow and not that much happened. However, what did happen was a pretty massive event for the arc, so that still makes it worth checking out. So I'm going to give this week's episode a 3 out of 5. It was still a really entertaining episode, and that Kyros scene at the very end was awesome. So check it out, guys. Really good episode of One Piece. Thank you guys for watching my review. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. And before you guys leave, please tell me what you thought about this week's episode of One Piece. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you have a favorite character who appeared? What did you think of Doflamingo getting decapitated by Kyros? And what do you want to see from the rest of the Dressrosa arc? Remember, if you guys have not subscribed to our channel, you can do that by clicking on the channel icon right up here. You can also follow us on Facebook and on Twitter.